What's up, everybody? Welcome back if you've been here before, and if you are new here, it is good to meet you. My name is Dr. Brandon Osborne. I'm the Director of Training here at Momentum WOD, and today I want to start off with a confession. I want to come clean to you. My interest in the sport of jiu-jitsu did not arise as a result of me training jiu-jitsu initially. My interest in the sport, much like many other people, arose as a byproduct of me being a fan of mixed martial arts and the UFC in particular, and as a result of that, over time, I developed an interest in the art as I started to develop an understanding of it. And in 2018, I started training myself, as a result of that interest. Today's video is a byproduct of me being a fan of the sport of mixed martial arts as a whole, and the subject of today's video is a legend in the sport. Today we have a special episode. We have somebody who has been a fan favorite for over a decade, whose longevity is potentially a byproduct of the training that he has been performing. We are looking at none other than Clay Guida, and if you've followed Clay's career, it's hard not to be a fan of the guy. His gas tank, his energy, his enthusiasm for life and for the sport is evident if you've watched him fight. So we're going to try to absorb his enthusiasm and apply it in our evaluation of his kettlebell training routine, which I must say is the best we have seen up to this point. Before we get started with today's video, I want to say, as I have in videos past, that this is not rehearsed. I am calling it how I see it. I'm shooting from the hip. The intent of this video is not to be harsh, to criticize, to belittle, or put down anybody, but to give an honest appraisal of somebody's technique and to break down that technique in a way where you can take something from it and apply it to your own performance of those same movements. So without further ado, let's get into Clay Guida's kettlebell training routine. I'm going to start the video in a pause position, and we're just going to have him in his initial setup, looking at his technique as he's performing what is called a kettlebell hike, getting the bell off of the ground. When you perform this technique, it should be something that you pay very close attention to and that you hold in a high regard. Treat this as if it is the first repetition of your set. The reason why we do this is because it's going to keep you safe, and it's going to be how you initiate the power to begin your set of swings or any other ballistic movement for kettlebell training. Clay is not paying particular attention to how he's getting the kettlebell off the ground, which, you know, telling Clay to take his time seems like a little bit of a contradiction in itself. So it's understandable that he's not doing that, but Clay, we want you to take your time here and get this bell off the ground safely. The way we do that is through the orientation and positioning of our body parts in relation to each other. And what I mean by that is that when you're setting up this movement, you want the low back in a neutral position, and you want the shoulders above the hips, above the knees. Depending on your height, depending on your stature, the relationship between those things might be a little bit different, but overall, for the average sized person, that's the orientation that we want. So if you notice Clay, his hips and his shoulders are at the same level and his low back is rounded. I don't love the way he gets the bell off the ground to start his set, but he makes up for it with a really good set of swings. So let's take a look. So he does hike the bell through the leg, just doesn't do it in the safest of manners. And then his set of swings looks really good. Notice, we're going to slow down the tempo of the video here a little bit. In his backswing, he waits until his elbows contact his rib cage before initiating his hinge back. This is going to allow you to be in that hinge for the shortest period of time possible, which in turn is going to force you to generate significant power to get the bell into that upswing. This is the proper way to do a swing. So Clay is doing it right. I'm blown away by his technique. It looks really good. Whoever his coach is, whoever has been training him, they are doing awesome. So props to them for teaching him to do this exercise with such attention to detail. So hold off on your hinge for as long as possible. That's the lesson to be learned here. The way he puts the bell down at the end of the set, obviously, you want to treat that portion of the set, ending the set with the same respect you treat the beginning of the set. you're just as liable to hurt yourself, to hurt your low back, at the end of the set as you are at the beginning of the set. It's a heavy weight. Put it down, treat it with respect, protect your back. All right, so the next thing he's going into, he's not going to be using the kettlebell here. He's going to be performing a core exercise. He's in a plank position, bringing knees to elbows.
Yep.
And I like what he's doing here. He's checking all the boxes. The reason being is that a lot of times when we prescribe core exercises for athletes, we're putting them into a position that compromises the low back. By putting the low back into a flexed position repetitively, it creates a lot of stress and strain on the low back. And when we're talking about what it does for your core, generally when we perform those exercises, they are working what is called the rectus abdominis muscle. When we're talking about our core musculature, there's actually layers of muscles. The rectus abdominis is what you know of as your six-pack, and is the most superficial muscle, which means that it contributes the least to performance and the least to stability. Once we start getting into deeper layers, the internal and external oblique muscles, the transverse abdominis, and then some of the muscles of the back as well, you start to really focus on the skills that will contribute to your performance over time. So something like a sit-up is going to work on the most superficial muscles. It's going to work on strength. It's not going to work on endurance. It's not going to work on power. Doing something like a plank is going to hit your deeper core muscles, and it's going to have more application for performance, which is why we like what he's doing. And he's keeping his back in a neutral position, which is going to help to prevent injury. So a lot of good things that are going on here. So props to Clay, props to his trainers once more. Slow and controlled movement, muscular endurance. There's a lot to be liked about this. And you'll notice the pace at which Clay is performing this workout. He's not breaking at any point. So this is probably a conditioning workout more so than anything else. Which, if you know Clay, makes sense that he's focusing on his conditioning because he's known for that. The next kettlebell exercise we're going into is a high pull, which is basically an intermediary exercise between a one-arm kettlebell swing and a kettlebell snatch. Once again, his technique looks really good. I have no qualms with what he's doing. It's a difficult exercise. It requires a significant amount of stabilization in the upper extremities. His technique looked great. You can see, if you're looking really closely, Clay has some chalk on his hands as well, which is going to help his grip. We talked about this in our last video as well. When you're performing one-arm swings, snatches, high pulls, I would definitely chalk up those hands beforehand to perform the movement safely. Transitions the bell in the air, he's back to high pulls. So this exercise, if you're looking to progress up to a snatch, this would be a good exercise to learn first, because it's going to incorporate a lot of the same principles that go into performing a snatch properly. So we're moving to some burpees. So we're performing alternating overhead presses. Notice the position Clay has the kettlebells in the front rack. His wrists are strong. He doesn't have those wrists cracked open like we've seen in the past. Strong wrists, vertical forearms. He's engaging those lats, packing those lats, so everything is engaged as he's performing those repetitions from side to side. Once again, props to Clay. Cleans the bell to the front rack. We're performing a squat. Double front rack squat. His form looks good. His tempo looks good. He's slowing things down a little bit. Puts those kettlebells down. Checking with his trainer, making sure he knows what's coming up next. A little shadow boxing in between. And this brings us to a point which I want to bring up as well, which we haven't talked about in past videos. In between sets of your workout, when you're recovering, you should be recovering in an active fashion. And Clay is doing this here we would expect it out of him. He's always moving in some capacity. But when you're working out, in between your sets, you want to make sure that you're recovering actively. The reason being, what that's going to do is that's going to help to reduce the buildup of excess lactic acid in your muscles. So it's going to help prevent you from getting fatigued over the course of a long workout from a muscular strength and a muscular endurance standpoint. Further, what that will do is if you're performing a high intensity workout, going from 0 to 100 and back down to a 0 creates a lot of stress and strain on your heart. So you want to gradually reduce your heart rate in between sets rather than jump up and then stop moving, jump up, stop moving. Overall, those two things together will help you to stay powerful and stay strong over the course of a workout, which is going to have implications for your performance long term. All right, so we're picking the bell back up. What are we doing? Oh, we're doing doubles, double dead cleans, back to an overhead press. His form looks great. And this is a full body exercise. It looks like an upper extremity exercise, but his full body is working to be able to perform that properly. So the only thing I would do different here with these double clean to front rack squats to overhead presses is maybe instead of performing dead cleans, because it is a lot of weight, I might opt for a normal clean where the bell is hiked between the legs before bringing it to that front rack position. Once again, just from a safety standpoint. He's starting to fade at the end of this workout. I mean, he's staying strong, but you can tell that it's wearing on him a little bit. All right, we're back to swings, and it looks like Clay is performing alternating one-arm swings, which is kind of like an intermediary step between two-arm swings and one-arm swings. Because you're passing the bell from hand to hand, there's not as much of a need to stabilize the rotational forces that are being imparted on your body. So it's actually a little bit easier than a traditional one-arm swing, which you wouldn't expect. All right, so that does it for Clay's 5-minute HIIT routine, kettlebells and body weight. Clay is very proficient with the kettlebell. I'm super impressed with the way that he's performing his workout and these exercises. He has clearly been using kettlebells for quite some time, which might be a testament to why he has lasted in the sport for as long as he has. It might be a reason why his conditioning is as well known and prolific as it is. I'm a fan of Clay as an athlete. I'm a fan of his ability to train with kettlebells. Props to his trainers for teaching him the proper technique so he doesn't get hurt when he's performing these exercises and he doesn't get hurt when he's in the octagon. So thumbs up to Clay's routine. He's got my seal of approval. I hope what I've talked about today has provided you with some information, some knowledge, and a basis to start your own kettlebell training if you have not picked up a kettlebell before. There wasn't a ton to critique Clay on because he was doing a lot of things really, really well. But some of the little details that maybe we discussed can provide you with a little boost in terms of improving what you're doing. If you have enjoyed this video, of course, give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button below. If you are looking for kettlebell training for jiu-jitsu, for combat sports, do not hesitate. Head over to momentumwod.com/join-now. We have a 7-day free trial, no credit card required, where you can take part in our jiu-jitsu kettlebell performance training for free. We also have a free ebook, which is linked in the description below. Check that out. And I will see you all next time. Dr. Brandon Osborne, I hope you've enjoyed. Till then.